Good space time, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Citizen Web3 podcast, your source for educational insights into the Web3 universe and your connection hub to discovering those that contribute to building the decentralized world. Today, we are joined by Vik Sharma from Cake Wallet. We touch upon true blockchain wallets, communication, and Steal. We discuss permissionless self-custody money, the importance of privacy, and traceability. Finally, we talk about making cryptocurrencies less intimidating, adoption, and tribalism. If you enjoy our podcast, please share this episode to your favorite social platform to help us spread Web3 values across the universe.
I was like, this is the future. I mean, permissionless self-custody money, it was mind-blowing. Generally, over time, maybe not in one generation, but I think eventually it happens. The will of the people does win out. Advice I would give to other founders is don't listen to other people. Do what your gut tells you. Sometimes you know what you're doing, but in the end, we're on the same team. We're trying to provide privacy for everyone.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Citizen Web3 podcast. Today, I'm glad to have Vik. I don't know how Vik happened with Vik being the obvious. I don't know my W and my V's. Of course, I have Vik Sharma from Cake Wallet. Sorry about this, Vik. How are you? Hi.
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad to have you on. The W thing was a fun. It's common, really. It's a common mistake.
Yes, very common.
I must say, it was not a mistake. It was a slip of the VW on my end. It was
no. I mean, I actually noticed. You know, I'm Indian descendant, of course, and I notice Indians doing that quite a bit. And my advice is always just think the other letter is there, because people consistently just flip them around. So just do the opposite.
Vik, let me please get out the typical stuff out the way. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself for me, for the listeners, in as much detail as you want, of course, focusing on Web3, possibly, and anything else you want us to know about you.
Sure, yeah. My name's Vik Sharma. I'm the founder of Cake Wallet. I also founded Monero.com wallet, which is a Monero-only wallet, whereas Cake Wallet is a multi-currency self-custody, what I call a true blockchain wallet. I'm also the chairman of Liberty Steel US, which is a steel producer here in the United States. I've been in crypto since, well, specifically Bitcoin since 2013. Launched Cake Wallet, started building it in 2017, launched in January of 2018. And it's been a fun ride.
That is, I mean, I know, of course, about the steel, but I was wondering if you were going to bring it up, because I usually don't try to go directions which guests don't want me to go. But since you brought it up, my first question is going to be a bit strange. How on earth do those two things combine into one human being? I mean, Monero and then steel. How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, I can start with steel. I grew up in a city called Pittsburgh, which was the steel capital of the United States and maybe the whole world at some point. I think probably for 100 years. So steel I got into mainly because of family influence, right? My dad started a company back in 1980, which is a steel engineering and design company where we designed and made rolling mills for the steel industry. So in that company, we didn't make steel, but we made the machinery to make steel. And when I graduated from engineering, I joined the family business right away. And then obviously that led me, and that business hasn't closed down since my dad passed away, but that route led me to consulting and advising other steel companies, and Liberty Steel being one of them. I started just advising them and being a consultant, helping them expand into the United States. But in that journey, I've served as president, as CEO again, and being on the board, and now I'm the chairman. On the tech side, I mean, since the 80s, I've been a little bit of a nerd. in the 80s, I taught myself when I was in high school. I taught myself basic assembly, Pascal, even went down to machine language. And nothing was taught in the schools. This was me going to the University of Pittsburgh library and picking out books and teaching myself. But I think the last time I coded anything was probably 1992, a long time ago. How many years is that? 30 some years ago? Yeah. And I think at that time I did a object-oriented database for our steel company, and that was the last coding. But since then, I mean, I'm a techie at heart. I've always tried to read up and keep up with everything going on. Even in the late 90s, I had a IT company with 100 people in Pittsburgh, um, doing networking and network security, which was new and cutting edge at that time. Um, and then I ended up selling that company, but I've always dabbled here and there. Even before Cake Wallet, I had different apps that I was just playing around with. But in 2013, when I really dug into Bitcoin, it just clicked for me. I was like, this is the future. I mean, permissionless self-custody money, it was mind-blowing. And I can't stop thinking about anything else since then. So yeah, I've been juggling both routes, the steel route and the Cake Wallet route.
Ironically, I'm sorry if it's gonna sound wrong, but ironically, I think selling machinery for steel production and making a wallet for cryptocurrency is more or less the same thing, because it's like selling shovels to the gold miners. I think it's a service. It's not rather. So it's cool to see that. I know it might sound a little bit wrong the way I'm saying it, but I'm not trying to make
No,
it sound wrong.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Why a wallet, right? I mean, if you want to get into that right away. So you have this magical, mysterious thing called a blockchain, which is living in the cloud somewhere, for a non-techie. Um, how do you access that? How do you manipulate that? How do you write to that? How do you, as a individual, how do you use it? How do you use this blockchain? And I realized a wallet is self-custody. And I hate, maybe some people argue with me, but I like to use the term a true blockchain wallet. Um, is the way you communicate with the blockchain. It's how you send out instructions and how you receive instructions as a user. And I think I realized that early on, and I wanted to step in and be that tool to be able to do that.
Absolutely. I think that, wallets along with explorers and of course infrastructure, physical infrastructure, are the three big pillars to adoption, right? I mean, regard
Mhm.
the infrastructure aside now, it doesn't matter how, I mean, not that I want it to be like that, but it doesn't matter how blockchains will look in the future, centralized, decentralized, you still need a wallet and an explorer to access that. So yeah, without that,
Mhm.
I guess we're not going to be there.
Sure, sure. And of course, nodes and miners are equally or more important, but just looking at it from a consumer standpoint, I think the wallet is the tool to have.
Absolutely. Why did, I mean, I'm gonna try to soften the question. I have it written down in one way, but I try to soften it up. Well, I
Mhm.
mean, because privacy to become important for somebody takes time, and not just time. In my opinion, it takes an event like in life to happen. Something needs to like
Mhm.
boom, and then suddenly, or I was born into a family that raised me up like that. Of course, that could be a possibility.
Mhm.
I guess what I'm
Mhm.
trying to ask is what event or how did privacy become important to you personally in your life? Why did it become important to you?
I mean, I think generally speaking, privacy, everybody practices whether they like it or not. They're not publishing their bank balance anywhere. They're not revealing all their transactions they did on their, bank account to, I mean, you're normally practicing privacy, I feel. You're putting a password on your Gmail account. That's privacy to some level, right? You're not allowing everyone to read your emails. So number one, I think you're practicing anyway. Number two, me personally, if we want to talk about cryptocurrencies and specifically, was when I tried to buy something off the dark web. And it was antibiotics. And I tell this story all the time. And I sent Bitcoin directly from my Coinbase account to a darknet address. And I blame my wife. She didn't want to go to a doctor. She's like, just get me antibiotics. We know what we want. And Coinbase closed my account immediately. And that's when I kind of woke up to the traceability being practiced in Bitcoin, by chain analysis companies and these large exchanges. So that event was a wake up call to me.
It's ironic that you bring in antibiotics. Like literally, I don't know, 15 minutes ago, like a minute before we started the interview, I was replying to with an example about antibiotics and privacy, and the fact that on Twitter that I mean it's ridiculous that the game is rigged in EU and people don't think about it like that. I mean, antibiotics, which can potentially save somebody's life, need a permission, let alone. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, people are playing with people's life, and it's not like you need a genius doctor to prescribe antibiotics. You just need to understand what's wrong with your body.
And that's when I go to Mexico or go to Dubai, I load up on a bunch of prescription medicine, which is impossible to get in the US. Yeah.
Absolutely. I understand you completely. I'm in the EU, and I usually either do those things, or all my friends know like where to bring their leftover pills. So,
if I could address the event, some event happening where it makes people do something, right? I mean, even Bitcoin was born out of an event happening. It's the financial crisis in 2008 when who was the CEO of Goldman Sachs? Was it Paulson? He stood up there with who was it, Bush at the time, um, and we gave out all these tax money to bail out insurance companies, Wall Street players, and and Bitcoin was born out of that, saying we need money that can't be screwed with and manipulated. So that event happened, and everybody got into Bitcoin for that reason. But I feel people have forgotten about that event, and Bitcoin's just become this number go up and store of value thing, which is cool. Everything evolves, everything has a place. So I just thought of that when you talked about a specific event happening, which makes people do things, and was kind of interesting that Bitcoin stemmed out of that. Yeah.
I think that understanding that something is wrong with Bitcoin back in 2018. Personally, for me, it was I've been a long time in crypto as well. So, but like understanding that something is wrong happened to me in 2018, roughly, with Bitcoin, and that was the moment where I understood that I need to start doing my own projects and I need to start building infrastructure and stuff like that. I don't know how it was related in my head, but since then, that's what I've been doing, because that event exactly of looking of people, and I was speaking to Seth, from your colleague, and absolutely fascinating interview, by the way. And for all the people listening to this, also please check the Seth interview, of course. And you can find it under the show notes, as everything Vik will mention. But there was a point though that Seth mentioned that I want to ask you about. There was something he said that influenced me a lot, because I kept asking him, like, look at Bitcoin, look at what has become, look at the surveillance machine, look at all the court cases, look at Tornado Cash, look at yada yada yada. And then he said something that like really blew me out. He said, "Yeah, it means we're winning." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "But if we have the court cases, that means they're afraid. That means we are actually winning. It means the war on privacy is there." Do you think so? Do you believe that we are winning the war on privacy, or do you think we have a long way to go until we can say something like that?
Well, I mean, I think generally over time, maybe not in one generation, but I think eventually it happens. The will of the people does win out, and I'm not a weed smoker myself, but I'm fine with other people doing it. But I always use that as an example, right? When I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, we were like scared. Like, if we were smoking weed and we saw a cop drive by, you'd panic. It's like 10 years in prison minimum. So but I think over time, the regime changed, the people in the government changed, um, and the truth comes out, and now it's everywhere. So I'm probably not as pessimistic as a lot of people in crypto are about this dystopian, you know, boot on the neck future. I'm very positive about the future. And I agree with Seth. The fact that these court cases are happening and these issues are being recognized and authority is being forced to deal with these issues in a way is definitely winning. That this is coming to the forefront, and we're asking the question, are you going to be let us give us privacy or not? So just the fact that it's on the table, is being discussed, is being debated, is being tried, I agree with Seth 100%. It is a form of winning.
It makes me happy to hear more people say that. I mean, I must say, for me, it was not a revelation as such, but I never put it that way. I never been, because I like to think of my own projects as focused on privacy a lot, whether it's validation or doing some mining operation because we believe in those things, or anything else, or building tools. But like I also can't not help not to notice the amount of guests that come to my show over the years, and I'm not talking about Steph or yourself right now, obviously, but people. Okay, Monero maybe aside, but a lot of other guests who are afraid to speak, who are afraid to mention things because they are, well, for obvious reasons. And this is, I guess, my next question to you. Being, a CEO, right, of a legal company, right, with some legal requirements and legal bounds, and at the same time being I'm not saying those are two different things, but I'm trying to word them differently on purpose. Being the founder of probably the most used privacy wallet today, a privacy-focused wallet today. I mean, you can understand this ambiguity, right? The paradox. How do you, yeah.
Well, luckily, Liberty Steel is a private company. It's not public at all. It's one shareholder, who's one of my best friends from childhood. So, yeah, I mean, if it was a public company, could some public regulators have issue with involvement in a privacy coin? Maybe. But in the United States, Monero is not illegal. And we have to remind, Seth could talk about this for hours. We get on a call with potential third-party partners, and the first question we ask them, do you support Monero? And surprisingly, a lot of people have said, no, we try to keep it clean, or we try to stay legal. And we're like, what are you talking about? What the fuck is this? Monero is clean and it's legal. There's no issue with it. So for me personally, it hasn't been an issue yet. I mean, I did receive a letter with the IRS the other day saying we have information, you own cryptocurrency accounts. So I'm kind of losing sleep over that now. But again, I'm not hiding anything. Everything's on the up and up. I do try to report everything. So what was your question? I kind of rambled there. Oh, about me feeling any pressure. No, I'm lucky. Like if I was a public company, maybe there would be an issue. Who knows? But not yet.
Let me stick in a very quick question because of the rumbling. Private government and public citizens, or private citizens and public government?
What do you mean?
What's for you? What's for you more? Do you think that the way the society should be is where we have public citizens and a private government that doesn't have to be public if it doesn't want to, or the other way around? We need to have the world where we have private citizens and public governments.
Governments should, if I'm understanding your question correctly, governments should 100% be public and transparent and open. I mean, in the end, they are representatives from the population, which are doing the will of the people. Ideally, obviously, that doesn't happen all the time. Whereas corporations and individuals, of course, should be private. I mean, that's the point. Now, of course, if you're a publicly traded company, yes, there are some rules for transparency and but that's a choice a company makes. If you want to tap into capital markets and equity markets, um, then yes, of course, you have to have some transparency to your investors and players and founders and backers and what have you.
I'm glad you said it, because not it's surprising that a lot of, I wanted you to take the question as you understood it. That's why I didn't give any more explanation. But it's exactly what I meant, and I'm surprised that a lot of people that are building in this space are actually of a different opinion, and I was very surprised to learn that. And I understand the worries, and I understand, but it's like with Coinbase, right? I was just, again, making it fun, in quotations, tweet about that, about, because they were saying, what did they get? They only got the IDs, the addresses, and I was like, oh, but okay, but only criminals hide data. Yeah, only criminals hide data, right? So we don't need nothing to worry about. I mean, it's just criminal data that they got, just addresses and public government IDs. Fucking hell, though. I mean, this is ridiculous, right? And like, fuck.
It's shocking. It's shocking that a company like Coinbase that is managing funds of almost every ETF. I mean, even forget about our small little individual people, but ETFs that are storing billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin with them, and they can allow something like this to happen. Again, I don't, you shouldn't judge anybody, but but it's just shocking, right? I mean, you would think they would have better OPSEC and better security. Maybe we should send Seth over there to fix that system.
For sure, that would probably help. For sure, it would help. I'm gonna have a weird question for you. I'm gonna give it a small, like 1 minute, like 30-second intro to the question. So, I was lucky enough to lucky. I don't know if that's the right word. I had the pleasure of meeting the founder of Monero back in 2019 in Chaos Communication Congress, and it's ironic to see how different you guys are in terms of, I don't know personally, I mean, like, as a representation in terms of you have a still, you work with still, and then I'm talking about, builders of Monero wallets, and then Monero is very, very different in terms of how he represents himself, how he's dressed, how he talks, what he does. And here's the question. Wait for the question. There's no judgment there. I promise. This is it's for the question. And this is the first part to it. Second part, I noticed over the years of being in this industry that a lot of founders build projects, and each founder, of course, has their own personal goals. It's not just money. It could be proving myself, or something else. Anyways, long story short, putting those two things in mind, I've seen a lot of projects that are being built by founders who essentially fulfill the whatever it was for them to fulfill, and they basically kind of not disappear together with the projects. They're not scammers. They're just, they're not interested anymore. Now, you're a person. What I'm trying to get at all of those explanations, you're obviously come across as a man who, well, to me, I apologize if I make the wrong judgment, is self-fulfilled. You come as a person who, with a character, with a story, with what's your goal in building a cake in all of this story? Like, why do you care about it? And why aren't you going to, disappear? Because once again, not that you are a bad person, it's just like you seem to me like a person who, is not after something a kid is after, right? I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly, and sorry for the long question, but yeah.
Let me address Monero first. The founder of Monero is a really good friend of mine. We get along very well. We help each other. It's funny. He was in New York one time. He called me up. We met for lunch, and I was like, "Oh, you probably don't expect an old guy like me running a crypto privacy space wallet." And he was like, and he told me his age, and we're like a year apart. And we laughed. We're like, "Oh, a bunch of old guys running these like cypherpunk type wallets." So we had a good laugh about it. But we get along really well. We share a lot of info. We even work with one of his, Andres. We collaborate with him a lot. I just paid for his flight to MoneroCon, so we, he does great work. So we get along really well. We with all the wallets, we really have a good relationship. Even Stack Wallet, which initially they started out forking our Monero code, which they've changed since then. But great relationship. I mean, Diego was tremendous help when I first started Cake Wallet. So we have a good relationship with everyone. Even Exodus Wallet, right? You probably heard we took over their Monero users. Great guy. JP's wonderful, wonderful guy. So getting back to me, I mean, why am I not going to disappear? I'd probably disappear from Steel first, to be honest with you, and that's definitely on the roadmap to disappear from there and do Cake all the time, which I'm doing Cake all the time. I don't know if my team is excited about me being around all the time, but it could be good.
Let me twist a little bit the question here instead of the disappearing part, because that was more of an analogy for me. What is Vik's private personal goal about making privacy important and Monero, for example, because it looks like Monero is in the front row for you over here?
Yeah, I mean, even before privacy, I want to make it easy as possible for people to self-custody their crypto and use their cryptocurrency. That's number one. And try to make that safe, easy. I always say Cake Wallet is easy enough for noobs, but it's got a bunch of advanced feature for advanced users, right? So, and I think we've balanced that pretty well. But that's my goal, and I don't think we're done yet. I think we still have a long way to go. Still, a lot of wallet stuff has to be done within Cake Wallet. So overall goal, that's what it is. It's to make Bitcoin and Monero and other cryptocurrencies less intimidating for non-techie people. That's our goal.
Just to vouch for it, and my listeners know I don't do this very often. Over the last 5.5 years, maybe I've done it only a couple of times. Definitely, Cake Wallet is, in terms of Monero. Now, I haven't used it for Bitcoin or Litecoin, but in terms of Monero, you guys are spot on. Moneruja also, but you guys are spot on. And like I said, I don't do this very often, but this is definitely vouching.
It's great to hear. Thank
your
you.
Job. By the way, I met the founder of Moneruja in Chaos Communication Congress on a dancing floor of a techno thing. We were with my ex-girlfriend, I think, dancing, and then it was him and Andreas, and we started to talk, and because I was mostly hanging out with the Monero guys, and it was awesome thing. We went to the zoo. I think we went to the Berlin Zoo. I think if you will talk about this with him, the way he will remember this. We went to the Berlin Zoo at the first week that COVID started. And when we were going around, we were thinking, if this shit is going to turn out real, maybe we shouldn't be going to the fucking Berlin Zoo, right? I mean, that doesn't make any fucking sense. But okay. I wanted to ask you a question about regrets. And what I mean by regrets is, or challenges. I talked to once, like I told you, to a lot of founders, and I listened to a lot of stories. And you guys have built a product that it is very niche, but it's usable, and not many people have succeeded there before. In fact, only one person succeeded before you. You're the second one, in my opinion. What are your regrets and challenges that you would advise other builders in the space that are listening to this now or in the future to focus or avoid, or whatever it is you're going to choose to talk about?
Challenges that we had. I would say having a external audit is important. I think that goes a long way, especially when you're handling when your app is handling other people's money, not that you're handling other people's money. Advice I would give to other founders is don't listen to other people. Do what your gut tells you. Sometimes you know what you're doing. It's okay. Listen to yourself. Trust yourself, and build it. And the other thing which I went through was don't worry about if somebody else is doing it. Because when I started building Cake Wallet, there was no Monero wallet on iOS, no open source Monero wallet on iOS. And I didn't go to the Monero subreddit that much. I'd, once in a while go on it. And I saw that the community was funding some iOS wallet. And I would feel like, oh, the community's funding it. What am I doing? They're never going to accept my wallet. And and I would just turn it off. I just stopped going to the subreddit because I didn't want to know. I didn't want to get influenced by that. And I was committed to doing this. And we did it. And we beat that wallet to the App Store. And the rest is history. So I would say don't be scared. Listen to yourself. Don't worry about other people are doing because it's a big chance you might do it better or differently or cater to a different crowd. But number one is listen to yourself. Listen to yourself.
So stay home, finish the product, basically, like you said.
Yep. Yep. And the other thing is, sometimes you don't know the end picture, right? I mean, looking at now, we just put in silent payments for Bitcoin, right? And we're putting PayJoin for Bitcoin. If you would have asked me 2017, are you going to put in Bitcoin technologies? I would have been like, what are you talking about? So, and this space is evolving so fast. There's new things, new tools, new people, new needs, new third-party services, everything coming up every day. So I guess two things I would say. Listen to yourself and start. Just start. Even if you're just building one little feature, just start because other things will fall into place. People will contact you. Hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? People reach out and things will grow. So yeah, good question.
Do you think there is a difference in terms of not advice, but maybe the way that founders should proceed with I'm gonna try and sorry. Let's say if I was building a protocol or building a tool like wallet or an explorer is one thing. And in my opinion, when somebody is building a wallet, an explorer, a tool, I think what we're talking about is perfect. Now, on the other hand, and I cannot agree with everything, right? So on the other hand, a lot of the people building protocols out there, like, I mean, by protocols, I mean Ethereum or I don't know, any other blockchain, Cosmos, whatever, Polkadot, whatever, would say probably, well, if I'm staying home, then how the hell am I going to build a community? Now, do you think that it's the argument is just because the person doesn't know how to do it online, or do you think there is a difference for people who are like ourselves building tools and for builders that are building such things as the protocols themselves?
Yeah, I mean, you saw my tweet yesterday or the day before. I said advice to founders, stay home or in your office and build your tool and then go to the conferences. And I recognize every tool has a different need, but I think even if you're building a protocol or something, I think everything can happen online. Um, I mean, even though as a Bitcoiner since 2013, I probably didn't, I used to hang out at the Bitcoin Center here in Wall Street in New York City. But I never really went to a Bitcoin conference until like 2020 or something, 21 or something like that. Um, and everything was done online. So I think in this space, especially, everything can be done online. The conferences just seem like more just like a party. you know? And look, some things come out of there. I've met some great people at conferences, that we ended up collaborating with. But I had the foundation down first before was able to work with other people. So, and I think it also depends on your personality. If you're more an in-person type person talking to people, but I don't think it's needed. I think you can do it all online.
I can't help to million times agree because I mean in the beginning, especially that I used to when I started to working in crypto just a long time ago, I started community work and I used to be so many and as a community manager or as a founder or as a CEO or whatever, I was always in conferences and then I stopped because I started my own project and I realized it's not needed. And I went on without conferences for probably like, I don't know, 3-4 years. And then recently, like half a year ago, I went to Lisbon to a couple of events. And oh my God, what a trash. Like, I'm sorry, but like, those words just like would echo right now in my mind. Like if I was gonna do it again, just don't do it. Don't do it.
Yep, yep, yeah. But they're fun. I mean, I'm having said that, definitely come out and see us in Bitcoin Vegas, Bitcoin Prague, Litecoin Vegas, MoneroCon in Prague. So we'll be at all those. We'll be at Bitcoin Hong Kong as well. So
there is conferences and conferences, right? And I guess this is what I
yeah.
was gonna say, that there is like places where you go and you meet other builders and you meet people like-minded to you, and there are places that you go and people all they talk about is marketing budgets, and it's kind of anyways, let me ask you another question. We spoke about adoption, not adoption. We spoke about the importance of wallets a couple of times, and I guess the question is about
Mhm.
adoption. How do you see? Do you think? By the way, let's start with the easy, because there are a few camps in that group. In the adoption group, those who, for example, do you think grandmothers need to use the blockchain, or is that something that we don't need today?
I think they need to use the blockchain, but they don't need to know what it does, what's happening in the background. They need to be able to use it as simply as they do with a Venmo or PayPal or something like that. I know how to drive my car. I don't know how to fix it, right? It should be like that.
Then the follow-up question from that, because it was dependent on the answer. What's I mean, because today it looks like a lot of the wallets, for example, in general, they've
Mhm.
succeeded in progressing from how wallet used to look 12 years ago, a standalone wallet, which was absolutely unusable, really. You had to be an
Mhm.
expert a little bit to understand what you do. And I'm not talking about CLI, of course, that's different.
Mhm.
To what they are today, multi-portfolio wallets with ability to use different types of password mechanics and so on and so forth. So wallets have done it. Now,
Mhm.
explorers are slowly trying to catch up, probably still have another few years to get there.
Mhm.
Infrastructure, though, and this was my question about adoption. How do we reach adoption? How do we, I mean, okay, we hide for grandmothers the things they don't need to see in blockchain. Okay, so
Mhm.
that's so
Mhm.
we do that, but it looks like all of the infrastructure today, including by those who run explorers and wallets, for example, are run by
Mhm.
single beneficiary for-profit companies and not in a
Mhm.
decentralized manner. So do we
Mhm.
need this to reach adoption? If we do need this to reach adoption, then how on earth do we reteach people, even in this space, that decentralized infrastructure is important for adoption?
Um, so from the wallet side adoption, if I could address that first, even if you don't care about privacy, which I find baffling, but let's say even if you don't, and people don't, right? You go on Venmo, people have all their transactions transparent, where there is an option in the settings to hide your transactions, but nobody does it. I tell all my friends, hey, like go into settings and put that lock on. You don't want everyone to see that you paid your barber $10. Um, so even if you don't care about privacy, I think the biggest feature of Bitcoin and Monero and cryptocurrency is self-custody. I still think people more and more will come around to that, right? Because everybody at some point in their life is going to face some restriction from their bank, whether it's a wire they want to do or receive or withdrawal they want to do. They're going to face some restriction. And maybe they won't go all 100% self-custody blockchain, right? But maybe they'll say, okay, maybe some of my funds I should control myself. So I think that narrative and that feature should be pushed more often because privacy scares people. I have nothing to hide. You hear that from people. So let's take baby steps. Forget about privacy for a second. What about self-custody? Do you want to ask your bank every time you want to use and send your money? So that should be the first thing. As far as infrastructure goes, now here's comes back to your grandmother. Is a grandmother going to run her own node? No, probably not. Unless we get to a point, let's say, I don't know, 20, 30 years from now, your phone is so powerful and internet speeds are great, and that's going to happen, right? I mean, Moore's law or whatever the new law is called is, that's going to continue to happen. So until then, what do we do, right? Until then, you give an option for that user to connect to any infrastructure that they want and or that they trust, right? I mean, Cake Wallet, we run our own nodes, but we give an option to the user to connect to another node or to their own node, right? Um, yeah, that part is still pretty techy right now. So, but it's getting better and better every day.
Do you think we will get to a part where even the UI is going to be the front is going to be decentralized as well? Because it's also a part that supposedly, right, I mean, could be run by different parties, like different user interfaces or I don't know.
I don't know how the front of a wallet could be decentralized. I mean, kind of already is, right? I mean, you can choose Monero or Cake Wallet with your same seed or the Monero.com.
Not necessarily about Cake Wallet. I'm sorry that I might have highlighted it too much, but for example, we could take Uniswap, for example, right? Or I mean, Uniswap has examples of decentralized frontends. I believe so, at least. Not that people use them, but I believe that it does have such examples. And do you think that applications in general and tools should aim for to become as decentralized as possible from any end? Or is there, what I'm trying to get here is, do you think that there is some part that doesn't require to be decentralized? Because in many people's views, decentralization is a spectrum, which it is, and I agree with that. But one thing is to decentralize everything, and one thing is to decentralize maybe certain things. So what I'm trying to understand is, do you think there is a limit to decentralization and adoption that will come out of adoption of decentralization?
Yeah, I always find, predicting the future is you're always predicting it on technology that you have today, right? And I always use the example of when you watch old sci-fi movies from the 70s and 80s, and on the spaceship, they have, for the monitors, they have old CRT monitors, right? I mean, even when we watch Blade Runner, and they're reading the eyeball reading, they're using like a CRT and a dot matrix printer because that was the technology at that time. They didn't envision flat screens or laser printers or no printers, right? So I mean, today to say, can everything be decentralized? Definitely the back end, swaps, like Sarai coming out for Monero. That all, we can see the future right now where we're sitting, and that's happening. As far as everything, including the apps and front end that you're using, yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah, I'm sure it's possible. I don't have a clear path to it in my mind right now, but I'll definitely think about it.
But by the way, for the validators or operators listening to this, I suggest to check out also Sarai. That is a very interesting DEX with a very interesting proposition. Not easy to get into, but it's a nice learning curve. How do you tell, by the way, your friends about? I mean, because your friends, I don't. I'm not going to make any judgments here, and I'm not going to make any guesses who are your circle of friends, because that is very subjective. But still, like, doesn't matter where they come from or who they are. I guess that when they look at the news and they hear about things like Libra coin or I don't know, like Trump coin or whatever, or like, and then suddenly there is you with like, oh my God, values, privacy. Like, how on earth do you tell your friends, and how do you keep how do you keep like a serious face while explaining to them about serious stuff that we're talking about right now, when all they hear about around themselves is like Trump coin and the Melanie coin or whatever there is other shit there is?
Well, let's just start with Bitcoin, right? I mean, question I always get from other people who are not into Bitcoin yet, who don't understand, is should I buy Bitcoin now? And I always struggled how to answer that, right? Because I don't want to lead them wrong, but at the same time, I want them to buy it. So my answer, I came up with the best answer. I said, I'm the wrong person to ask because I'm always buying, right? It kind of it shows that, hey, yes, anytime's a good buy. I'm always buying, but I'm pushing off the responsibility of advising them to buy. Um, so, I mean, outside the crypto space, in my steel world and regular world, most of my talks are teaching people about how crypto, Bitcoin works. And I always start with Bitcoin. People know the name, people know it's established. Um, and tell you the truth, I take a little bit of pride in explaining how Bitcoin works to people. And I ask them to rate me afterwards. Even my friends, I'm like, how did I do? Where did I confuse you? And because I love it. I love explaining to people how Bitcoin works. I love teaching people about it. So so that's one. And if somebody does bring up, hey, Trump coin, this and that, I'd clearly tell them, hey, look, it's a gamble. If you want to try to like hit the lottery, yeah, go ahead and buy it. I own some. Why not? You never know, right? Um, but if somebody really asks, what should I buy? Of course, try to. If they have they're only buying it just purely for investment and no other use. They're just going to leave it on their Coinbase or Kraken and never touch it. I just tell them to go for the safe stuff. Say buy Bitcoin, buy Monero, and then they're like, "How about Ethereum?" I'm like, I don't have any, but you can." I made that big announcement last year, right? I've sold all my Ethereum for Bitcoin, which not all. I'm held on to some, of course. You never know.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah.
Um, you have. I mean, let's disregard for a second the real world and talk about crypto. Now, you had at least the internet. I mean, and the internet lies all the time, of course. But you had a fascinating journey, like from Digibyte to Monero to Cake Wallet to
Mm-hmm.
like this is what I could find at least, right? And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, it looks like you are. I don't know if you consider yourself a community manager, but you are building communities. And my question is like, like looking at your journey in crypto, this is what you do. You build communities. And right now, um, that's the question basically. What do you find fascinating about building community? Because you said also that you like teaching people. And I guess that kind of
Mm-hmm.
goes along with it. Why do you find it fascinating? Why does it drive you?
I mean, in the end, it's people, right? I'm not building this for Tesla robots to use, right? We're building this for regular humans to use. I mean, even Bitcoin was created for people, to have financial freedom. So I think without that, it's meaningless. I mean, what good is a tech if people can't use it? If only a few select, and I say this in the nicest way. I'm using this word out of respect. Nerds, only if nerds that know command line, type of work and just that community uses it. That's great, but it's got to break out of there at some point and gain, wider adoption. So that's why I like community. And then for me personally, in regards to Cake Wallet, I love talking to our users. When I started Cake, it was just me and another guy, right? And I did everything. I did the support. Yeah, I used to talk about our support staff, but it was me. Uh, so um, I love talking to Cake users. I love learning how they're using it, and I get great messages. People telling me that they're able to send money to their mother in South America or something. I love stories like that. It keeps me going. Um, but in the end, I'm building it for our users. So I love the feedback. So I think that community is important. Then the wider community, Monero, since I believe in the coin so much and its mission, that community is important to me. I mean, a lot of things in Cake Wallet we did and didn't do because the community liked it or didn't like it. That community is important to me, and that's why I fund. Largest for many years, and largest sponsor of MoneroCon, Monero Talk, Monerotopia, you name it. I mean, so many different Monero podcasts. We fund development. We donate to Monero Research Lab. We donate to the general fund. We donate to individual fundraisers. CS or CCS or CSS, whatever it's called. So yeah, the community is important.
I was actually smiling at the beginning that you said it when you mentioned Tesla, and I was thinking I can just envision two robots, early Tesla robots in 50 years from now, like talking to each other. And I go, yeah, I got some Monero on a dark web, So, um, let me ask you one last question before I'm going to jump into a small blitz to finish this off, because it's about community. I personally, I am not. Fun is a very big understatement of what Monero is for me. I've been on Monero Talk, for example, as a guest some years ago.
Okay.
And 5 years ago, I think, or something like that. And I'm a big fanboy of Monero. But lately, I can't help not to notice the tribalism that is emerging in Monero community. Now, we're talking about communities, and you are not Monero to us that, but the person I don't want to put like the responsibility of your answer to that, but still, we're talking about Monero right now, and we're talking about how important community is, and it's weird to me to see that. It's painful for me to see that it's the same slippery route the Bitcoin communities went by 5 or 6 years ago, five or 6 years ago. How do you think we can avoid that in the Monero community, and do we need to avoid it?
I think more than anything, it comes down to, for a lot of, I'm not speaking for everyone who's, has a tribalism mentality for Monero or for Zcash or whatever. But I think a lot of it just comes down to the human need of wanting to feel like you belong to a group. So that's probably the biggest factor. We just want to belong as human beings. We want to know we're part of a group and accepted. That's one thing. But specifically for Monero, and let's talk about. I know you're hinting at Zcash. I mean, that's that's. I mean, you probably know the story. Years ago, Zcash offered us a grant to add Zcash to Cake Wallet, and I was ready to do it. But the Monero community was very vocal. I mean, and Cake Wallet was like the darling of the Monero community, and like I said, I value that community. I didn't want to let them down. And we said, okay, and we turned down the grant. And by the way, Zuko has blocked me on Twitter. I don't know why. I actually like the guy, and he and I talked a lot, and Zcash in general. I mean, I think, look, if you leave the dev tax aside, if you leave the marketing company or whatever, the CEO, whatever they have, if you look at purely the tech, it's okay. I mean, it's good. Yeah. So, but I think the tribalism hurts both communities, not just Monero, not just Zcash. We have to realize we're on the same team, maybe taking different paths and different technologies, but in the end, we're on the same team. We're trying to provide privacy for everyone. Will Zcash come to Cake at some point? Probably. Most likely. We'd probably do it differently than other wallets do Zcash. We'd probably emphasize the shielded transactions, the shielded Zcash more than anything else, and maybe even limit to just that. But we haven't decided that yet. But going back to your tribalism, yeah, I think it's damaging for the communities. But also social media, just people just love to pile in. You notice that about, especially on Twitter and Reddit. Twitter more than anything. Just one thing just sets off a spark, and just people you never even heard of just pile in on stuff, whether it's racism or Russia or Trump or politics or vaccines or whatever. People love to just pile in. And again, maybe it just comes back to that whole thing of wanting to feel like you're involved and your voice is heard. So I think what happens online should be taken with a grain of salt. Um, so, but yeah, a lot of people in Monero community say when this full chain membership proof plus, gets implemented into Monero, then, there's no looking back. But we'll see.
I actually think that we will be smiling at all those things in like 20 years from now. But I mean, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. I mean, it's just otherwise
Yeah.
you cannot. I mean, look at the internet, right? Look at any technology, the way it was developing. It's inevitable. But anyways, otherwise I'll go on. It's a dear topic to me, and I'll go on another hour of conversation. Sorry about this. Let me go to the Blitz. 3 questions, non-related to crypto. This is to take us out of the conversation and to, yeah. So, first one, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to answer quick. I call it Blitz, but
Okay.
yeah, ignore that. First question, Vik, please give me either a song or a movie or a book that has had a positive influence on your work life and your success.
Book-wise, it would have to be Warren Buffett's biography called The Making of an American Capitalist. I read that in my early 20s, and that was huge. Um, Another book, which people laugh at because it's so basic, I went to school for engineering. I didn't go for finance or money or anything like that. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I know it's kitsch, but I think everybody should read that book. It just opens your mind up about how money works. Um, what movie? I have to think
Books,
about that.
books, books, books is good. By the way, like I was over there because to me, I do a lot. Well, I used to do. I don't do anymore. Like I said, conference is not my thing anymore. But I used to do a lot of public talking, and it was related to a lot of different things. And one of the things I used to say, it was about Rich Dad Poor Dad, is kitschy as it is, it opens up your thinking, it changes it, it twitches your
Yep.
thinking, throws you out of there. Unless you grew up in something like that already, it doesn't, of course. But if you haven't, just goes bam. So absolutely, 100%. Second,
Yeah.
second question, Vic. Please, something you can share, of course, with me in the audience, motivational that keeps Vik waking out of bed every day, keep on focusing on privacy, on Monero, and doing
Mhm.
something good for the world.
Yeah, I mean, as we said earlier, number one, I do wake up for Cake Wallet. That's why I wake up. Of course, my wife and daughter as well, but wake up for them as well. But waking up for Cake definitely is part of that. Like I said, I mean, I think we still have a lot of work to do in Cake Wallet. I think we still have a long way to go. Um, like you said, to get the grandmothers to use it. Uh, that's the ultimate goal. So I don't think we're done yet. I think that's what keeps me going.
I like that answer. We're not done yet. I like that. Last question is going to be the weirdest one, I promise. Last one, though, I also promised.
Mhm.
Not a guru, because I don't believe in gurus. I don't think gurus are a thing. I think that we should follow our own path. But dead or alive, made up, or a real persona, family member, a developer, I don't. It doesn't matter. Character from a book, somebody
Mm.
who, a personage who, when you professionally stuck, it kind of
Mhm.
helps you to think about that personage, and it helps you to progress. Doesn't matter how stuck you are or what you stuck at, but professionally particularly.
Um, Again, probably the first one, the public figure. Again, it's going to be a cliche answer. But in terms of business, right? You're talking in terms of business and building. It's definitely Steve Jobs. I liked his philosophy on making, and we addressed this earlier, right? Making products for people to use. And one of his philosophies that I really liked is people don't know what they want or they can't see the next week, right? We talked about seeing things in the future based on today's technology as compared to imagining what the future technology is going to be. So I really like that mindset. I try to get into that mindset quite often. And then from a personal figure, I would say my dad. Um, his mentality, what I liked about his mentality is do it now. now is the best time. You want to do something, do it right now. Pick up the phone, call. I definitely learned that from him. And what else? We could do a whole hour podcast on lessons I've learned from my dad. So yeah, I'd have to say those two people, business wise, have had the most impact. And Warren Buffett, as I said earlier. Yeah.
Can't forget Warren Buffett. No, but by the way, it's surprising how few people name people. I'm not judging again, but it's surprising how few people name family members on that question. It's an interesting thing. Okay, Vik, and for the listeners, thank you first of all, Vik, coming to answer my questions and finding the time to answer my questions. This is going to be a goodbye for the listeners. Please don't hang up just yet. For everybody else who tuned in and listened to us, goodbye, and see you in a couple of weeks or next week or whatever next tune in, guys. Vik, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. That's fun.
Bye.
This content was created by the Citizen Web3 Validator. If you enjoyed it, please support us by delegating on citizenweb3.com/staking and help us create more educational content.